This episode of the Kill by Kill podcast is brought to you by Torn Hearts, starring Katie Seagal. It's now available on digital and on demand. It's a horrifying tale set in Nashville's country music scene. When two rising artists think they've gotten their big break when they visit their idol at her mansion, it soon changes into a twisted series of mental and physical torments. What lengths will they have to go to in order to prove their dedication to their dream? Well, find out when you buy or rent Torn Hearts, unrated, from Paramount Pictures. Now, we love royalty here at Kill by Kill, especially horror royalty, and director Bree Grant certainly qualifies. We can't wait for you to catch Torn Hearts, and that's why we have 5 digital codes available exclusively to our listeners so they can watch this film immediately. How? Just email us at killbykillpod@gmail.com. That's killbykillpod@gmail.com with Torn Hearts in the subject line for your chance to catch this killer new flick. Torn Hearts, brought to you by Paramount Pictures. This episode of the Kill by Kill podcast is also brought to you in part by X, from director Ty West, and the studio that brought you films like Hereditary and The Witch. Comes X, the terrifyingly suspenseful horror thriller starring Mia Goth, Jenny Ortega, Scott Mescudi. This film is fantastic. It's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Our very own Gina Radcliffe loved it. And guess what? You can own X right now on Blu-ray and digital. X comes to you from A24 and Lionsgate. It's rated R. And to celebrate this spectacular new horror film that had everyone buzzing in the spring and is now making a crimson red splash on Blu-ray and digital, we're going to give away 5 copies of X exclusively to our listeners. That's right, you can have a Blu-ray of X in your hands. What do you have to do? Just email us at killbykillpod@gmail.com. That's killbykillpod@gmail.com with X in the subject line for your chance to own your very own copy of Ty West's fantastic X today. And now, the body count continues. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Ty is here. That's right, we're talking about Aliens. That's Alien with a $sign on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, and it's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from LV426. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. We're going to unpack all the goriest, chest-bursting detail of 1986's classic Aliens in the hopes that a colonial marine's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes that we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust, that if I get locked into a room with a couple of facehuggers, maybe she'll let me out. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
Maybe. Maybe.
Sure, maybe. Well, you know.
I mean,
biological.
I will certainly try to, unwrap its little tentacle thing from around your neck. My God.
One of my favorite behind the scenes things from this movie is this, and when people are talking about like what a complete asshole James Cameron was as a director, particularly on this set, because he was so exacting, is he's on the floor of that medical bay and they have a facehugger that's just rubber and someone's pulling a wire to try to get it to leap off the top of a filing cabinet and go over the top of the camera. He has the camera on the ground. No one else is operating it. Not a cinematographer, not a camera operator. It's Cameron. And he's like, what I want you to do is yank on that wire and have it come right across the top of the camera. Okay. It should hit me on the top of the head, but not the camera. Okay. And then he gets on the ground and you see the guy yank And he does fine. Like, it's a piece of rubber on a wire. And he's like, this is ridiculous. I don't think you're listening to me. Do you even have gloves? You can't do this without gloves. Go get gloves. Like,
oh, that's the trick. Okay.
That's the trick. Like, and you see the shot that he's doing. It doesn't fucking matter whether that guy has gloves. It's perfectly fine. But I mean, one of the things that Cameron has here is that, and this is filmed entirely in Pinewood Studios in Britain, is he's done everyone else's job. He's been in the Roger Corman system. So they are all like, who's this fucknut, this newbie we've never heard of before, who's like got 2 films under his belt, and people seem to like this Terminator thing, but that other one was shit. So they think he's just being an asshole. And he's like, I know your job because I've done your job. And the tension between the two of them made people quit, made them hate each other. And when he gave like a goodbye toast, he's like, I think we've made something special. This is a great movie. And the best part about it is that when I leave out of here, I know that I'll never come back to Pinewood again. Like, oh my God, what an a-hole. What a great movie maker. What an asshole. It's just...
But you know what? Like, at least it kind of like with all the behind the scenes bullshit about William Friedkin and directing The Exorcist.
Oh, yeah.
All this nonsense and all this dick waving was in service for a pretty much perfect movie.
Yes. I mean, I don't have notes.
No, we assumed, listeners, that most of you would have seen this movie at least once. And if you haven't, stop listening to us right now.
Just pause this and fucking watch Aliens today.
Because
you don't have to wait.
What have you been doing with your life up to this point?
I do feel like there's been... listen, it came out in 1986. There's a fair amount of our audience that watched this in the theater, saw it on home video. They're very familiar with it. They saw it on cable. There's also going to be a fair section of the audience that might not have seen Aliens for whatever reason. Maybe they don't know where to start in the Alien thing, or their introduction to it was one of the, more recent films. And they're like, I don't know if that's for me. If you're going to, you need to watch Aliens. It is legitimately a great time. When they tell people that movie is like a roller coaster ride, that comes from James Cameron describing how he wanted to make Aliens.
Yeah, in doing a little, reading behind it after I rewatched it for about the probably 75th time last night.
I've watched this a lot.
I was reading what the critics said about it at the time, and it was reviewed pretty well.
Yeah.
Notably did not like it was Roger Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah.
Both of whom did not like that the last half an hour of the movie is pretty much nonstop action.
Yeah.
And I believe the phrase Ebert used is he was tired and unhappy by the end of the
movie. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, Siskel kind of complains, like, I don't know who any of these people are, an Alien. At least you got to know those characters. He fucking hated Alien too. Gene. Gene. Oh, fuck.
Gene Douglas.
Constantine Siskel.
One of these days we're going to look up your real middle name.
Yeah, we don't care. If you didn't want to pay attention to Aliens, why should I pay attention to who you actually were? But they were both like, this is just tripe. Like, what has come of movies? Like, Alien was this perfect thing, and fucking Siskel didn't even like Aliens. So I don't know what he's on about. But he was like,
they famously did not care for horror.
Yeah. Well, Gene was a bit of a stick in the mud, a bit of a prig. He also lambasted it for putting, quote unquote, a child in danger, which, like,
mean, that's not the first horror movie or action movie in which a child is put in danger.
But he felt like it was manipulative. Like, the only reason you're going to make me care is this child is in danger. Not to mention the fact the child is the best survivor of the entire movie. Like, Newt would have kept on in that place until basically she ran out of food.
Well, Newt's secret weapon is she's got a scream that can cut a diamond.
She sure can.
Wowie, wow. I think I killed several dogs in my neighborhood watching this movie last night.
Yeah, she has a scream that could pretty much shatter glass. It's unbelievable. So let's put this into a bit of context here about like how Aliens comes to be, because the original comes out at the end of 1979. It's a gigantic hit in the early part of 1980. It's just huge. And Fox executives at the time were like, well, maybe we have a sequel if somebody has a good idea. But the head of Fox ends up changing over the course of the years, like 3 different presidents of Fox Entertainment. And for 2 of them, they're like, Alien is not a franchise. That you can't expand upon that. I don't want to hear about it whenever, Geiler and Walter Hill bring it up. And then finally, the 3rd president of Fox, after they've been flailing this entire time, is like, maybe we could do a movie. So Geiler's idea is, remember that absolute bomb we made for you, Southern Comfort, that came out in 1981? What if we did an Alien movie like that? And they're kind of like, I don't know. And then Walter Hill makes 48 Hours, and they're like, well, maybe you know what you're talking about. So Geiler and Hill they don't want to write it themselves. It's their idea. It's war on Alien. It's a bunch of space Marines. So they look at and like, who has a hot hand right now? And they find James Cameron. And Cameron is really only involved in this because he was put in a pickle by our old pal, When the Monkey Die, People Cry himself, Dino De Laurentiis. So Dino has Arnold Schwarzenegger on the hook for a Conan the Barbarian sequel. And Cameron's supposed to start Terminator up in Canada with him. And Dino goes, oh, no. I'm taking that guy halfway across the world. You can kick fucking rocks. So while they're waiting for Terminator to start, he takes scripting assignments. The first one he takes is Rambo First Blood Part 2. One of the weirdest fucking titles of all time.
Right up there with The Haunting in Connecticut 2, Ghosts of Georgia.
I mean, honestly, that might outdo for First Blood Part 2, if you're thinking about it. So yeah, he has enough time to kind of like do this massive thing for Sylvester Stallone. Of course, Stallone takes that script and changes one major thing, which is to put his name in front of James Cameron's.
just kind of scratch out Cameron's name
and
cover the script and write Sly.
Yes, basically. And yes, he did rewrites. He can't not touch things. But please go back to our Cobra episode if you want the further adventures of how Sly Stallone can't let anything fucking lie, including telling the person whose book that Cobra is based upon, I think you need to put my name on the cover too. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So Geiler and Hill recruit Cameron. And he's like, okay, I think Alien's like a perfect movie, but I like your take on it. Let me take a swing. I might be able to do something about it. He comes into Fox to pitch this. And of course, this is now the thing of legend that Cameron came into the room, went up to a whiteboard, wrote out Alien, then an S, and then made a dollar sign out of the S. And that was his pitch.
It was a real underpants known kind of pitch.
And he also pitched himself as the director. And Fox is like, we've seen Piranha 2: The Spawning. Which is, frankly, have you watched Piranha 2?
I don't think so. I think I've only seen the first one.
It's not good. It feels like it was directed with no sound. Like it's very Italian or Spanish. It's just Euro trash. And there's this feeling like they're trying to recreate Jaws, which isn't irrational considering that the original Piranha is basically a ripoff of Jaws. But it feels like they're trying to do it in this Jamaican locale, and they're giving a life to all of these characters. And there's this one divorcee who's trying to sleep with any swinging dick that comes through the door. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. And he was taken off the picture. Half of that was filmed by somebody else. It's not really Cameron's problem, but he was very burned by it. But Cameron has kind of a chance to prove himself, because in The Chamber, he's got Terminator. And just for a sense of scale here, let's remember that Terminator is a movie that he is clearly using a lot of influences from other people he would have to pay later on because of those influences. He made it for $6 million, and it racked up over 80 million just domestic. Okay? That thing was a fucking mammoth hit. So he comes out of that, and Fox is like, oh, we need to pick up this option on him directing. Like, obviously, he knows what he's talking about. At this point, he had done like 45 pages worth of script, and they're like, it doesn't matter. You're a genius. You do it. The thing is, to save money, we have to film it in London. And he's like, okay. This was back when London was the new Georgia. Like, if you just shove productions there, because like filming at the same time on Pinewood is Little Shop of Horrors. Are you still there?
I'm here. I'm listening to you. I don't have anything to contribute to this because you've really done your homework.
This is the same thing with Alien. Like, I've been preparing for this episode since 1986.
You knew, so when you were like 14, you knew someday you were going to be recording yourself talking about how great this movie was.
Yeah, yes. I probably rehearsed this with people who've said to themselves, "Holy shit, shut the fuck up." But,
no. I like I said, I'm interested. I'm listening to what you have to say. I will say, shockingly, I did not see this in the theater. I don't know what this came out, like June of '86.
No, July.
So yeah, I was just on the cusp of my 14th birthday. I have no idea why I did not see this in the theater.
Yeah, I told my Alien story before. What I didn't tell everyone is I ended up seeing Aliens 7 times total in the movie theater in 1986. Now, some of that was like the day after seeing it, I'm like, I have to get back and see this. So I connived a way to go back and see it. Then later, like a couple weeks later, I'm telling like my friends, we have to go see Aliens, and I'm dragging friends to see Aliens. Then Fox releases The Fly, Cronenberg's The Fly. So like, what a fucking summer from Fox, right? I'm very into The Fly, but then they pair them as a double bill. So you would pay, one ticket would get you to see Aliens and The Fly. And I will look up the newspaper ad that I believe a xenomorph hand and The Fly's like grabber are holding on to both ends of a ticket.
Oh, man.
I was obsessed. Like, these are giant, goopy monsters, right? And I can't get enough. It's just blowing my goddamn mind.
Yeah, I assume that I rented it when it came out on video like a year later, which is how these things used to work. You didn't get a movie coming out in theaters and then, on your television within a course of about 3 weeks, or the same day in the case of the recent Firestarter and our personal favorite, Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
But it melted my little brain. And then once it came to cable about a year after that, I pretty much watched it every time it was on.
And I think it played even, I think people were kind of revolutionized by it, because when you think of Alien, it is such a moody atmosphere picture. And there's certainly atmosphere to burn when it comes to Aliens, because it's the tension of rising up that hill really does take a while. There's a lot of over the kitchen table conversations that take place in the course of this movie about people theorizing or what we should do or how should we fortify this place. There's some talking, but all of this is under the pressure that what's out there, and that these people are unprepared to actually rescue anybody or really defend themselves. They're outmatched in every single way, shape, and form.
Right. Well, I think that's why I think it's unfair and sort of impossible to really rank the Alien series.
Yeah.
Because, they are unique they are all directed by different directors, who all have a very signature style. And they're just so different in style and tone, and like you can't possibly compare Aliens to Alien 4,
right?
Because they're two completely different movies. Yeah, that they involve a character named Ripley and alien creatures, but other than that, like the style, the setting, the weird Frenchy tone of part 4, because it's from the director of The City of Lost Children. I don't even bother trying to. I love them all, and this is going to cause some conflict between your pals Patrick and Gina as we move further into the series. I think there's something to love about all of them.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I don't dislike any of the first 4 Alien films. I think they all have something interesting to offer. Are they all as successful? No. And some of that is simply because of constant regime changes at Fox. Like, everyone who came onto another Alien film decided this is how you make an Alien film. When as you said, the ethos was you hire a director with vision and allow them to make their kind of Alien movie. And then the executives would see it and go, well, why isn't this Alien? Or why isn't this Aliens? And it's kind of like, because Alien and Aliens are such different movies. You can't tell me there's one type of Alien film. And they would go, we don't do that. When Batman shows up in a movie screen, you know what Batman is. It should be the same thing for Alien. And it's a terribly wrong-headed way to do such things.
Right. Let's loop around back to what you were saying about there's a lot of kitchen table conversations in this very action-packed movie.
Right.
When I rewatched it last night, and I don't think it was the first time I'd seen it, but it was the first time I really paid attention to the deleted scenes. I watched the director's cut.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me to see that, a lot of times when you watch a director's cut, you're like, yeah, that's fine that they left that on the editing room floor. That wasn't needed. And I think when you watch the director's cut of this, it's pretty much split right down the middle, what they should have kept and what was, probably not necessary. And I will tell you what I liked and thought added to the overall experience of what I thought was just filler.
Mm-hmm.
I did not think it was necessary to see the sort of prologue before everything goes to hell on the colony, where you kind of get an idea what happens to Newt's parents.
Yeah, I don't like that part
I think
either.
it's just a lot better just kind of assuming what happened to them than assuming that they're kind of stuck in that, horrifying, hive under the cooling system.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that what you find out what happened to Ripley's daughter. I think that's very powerful.
Yes.
And adds more to her relationship with Newt. I really, really like the scene with the automated machine guns.
Yes.
Fire. I think that's extremely suspenseful when you see how fast the ammo is running out.
And just how much, like, they can fire at these things forever. And it doesn't really, there's no morale to break down.
Because they just keep coming.
Yeah.
It's literally just an infestation. They just keep coming. It's like trying to kill a cockroach. You kill one, there's 100 more behind it.
Did you happen to read World War Z?
I did.
Okay. This very much reminds me of, and I think it's the Battle of New Jersey, or
where they're piling up on each other to sort of create like a human platform so they can get over the barrier.
Yeah, because like the army in that situation, as it is written in the book, they start nailing these things and they drop, but there's no morale to break when it comes to zombies. Xenomorphs don't go, oh no, we should try another route because we're losing too many. They don't think that way.
No.
And there's a thought process of that sort of Western American. What you do is you break the other army's will to continue fighting, and then you win their hearts. You can't do that shit with a xenomorph. Hence this film's interesting relationship to the war in Vietnam that has been brought up over and over again. I mean, Cameron specifically said that this is kind of his Vietnam movie, which is weird because, I hit the microphone. I shouldn't have done that. This is his kind of Vietnam movie, which is weird considering he's coming off of Rambo First Blood Part 2, in which a film in which a survivor returns to the source of his pain to prove that he was telling the truth about POWs. Whereas Aliens is a film in which a survivor returns to the source of her pain to prove that she was telling the truth about, aliens.
I don't actually care as much as I enjoy the we gonna fuck when this is all over chemistry between Ripley and Hicks.
Right. Yeah.
I don't actually care for the scene where they tell each other their first names, because I don't believe that Ripley would slow down enough from going to rescue Newt to have that moment with him.
It's a real pacing problem. Yeah. I mean, I don't, that's another thing that does not jibe for me on the director's cut. It doesn't quite work. Their chemistry does not need to be spoken about or explored. It simply is.
Right.
She sees that has empathy, that he does not look at her with derision, and respects what she has to say. And considering how long we've talked about motherfuckers not listening to Ellen goddamn Ripley, when someone listens to her, I don't know, there's some hoes in this house. Get a bucket and a mop. I'm just assuming, because how long can you be dismissed and constantly be proven right before someone goes, you know what? She's got some fucking ideas and we should really be listening to her. And here's a movie where enough people, after she has told them exactly what's going to happen and it happens, go, I think we should collaborate and really listen to one another in order to survive this situation. She has good ideas. And there's a couple men in authority in this movie who are like, oh, fuck, we're going to be, all of my plans are going to go to shit if people start listening to Ellen Ripley.
Yeah, we have to talk about Burke for a second.
Sure.
I no longer remember if if the first time I watched Aliens, and I was a naive teenager at this point. I don't know if the twist that Burke is the villain was. Yeah, I don't know if I considered that a twist. Now it's just like, oh, how could you possibly not know that this guy is going to turn heel at some point?
I mean, Paul Reiser is kind of fucking brilliant in this movie.
He is, and it's hilarious that this is the first thing I ever saw him in. When I heard that I was actually, at the time at least, a stand-up comedian,
Yes.
Sure, okay, I guess, because he just strikes me like a professional scumbag.
I mean, he does say that this kind of, in a sense, ruined his stand-up career. Like, he had to become an actor after this, because when he would get on stage, people were like, I kind of fucking hate you. And it's like, that's not a great place to come at when it's like, let's all laugh at my observational humor.
I mean, good for him. He's had a solid acting career.
He really has. And I think people have come back around to the kind of things that he can do. And certainly in the season of Stranger Things where he's introduced, this is a real play on his Aliens persona. They are leaning into your knowledge of Burke, and how can they play with that and against it so that you don't know exactly where he is. And it's such a revelation that he's not a raging asshole. Spoilers for Stranger Things. Has anyone not fucking seen that? Maybe, but it won't stop your enjoyment of it. I just think he's very good in walking that tightrope. And part of it is your knowledge of who he was in Aliens.
Right. And he's from the very moment, like, just insincerity just comes off of him in waves.
Yeah. Well, everyone who's in a Weyland-Yutani jacket with the thing with the semi-popped collar that just hugs their neck, which is a really interesting future look. And then he shows up in a pink fucking sweater and you're like, ooh, something doesn't sit right about this.
Yeah, I mean, the hints are there early, when he keeps telling her how much things cost, and when he, tells her, when he shuts down her idea of blowing the place up because, the dollar value right. on this bomb destroyed colony that's filled with corpses, cannot be underestimated, cannot be overstated.
Yeah. I mean, her lying to him of, I don't know who's worse, because you don't see the aliens fucking each other over for a percentage, is so goddamn devastating. And yet, if you will listen to some commentariat when it comes to, and they don't need to be pointed out or anything, this is an ongoing conversation when it comes specifically to the 80s, is that there is such a prevailing conservative ideal that is happening at the time with Reagan being in office, that his struggle to make the most out of his middle manager mistake, it just is devastating to the argument that at heart, this has a conservative bent, because Ripley is saved by entering into another, nuclear family with Hicks and Newt. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes a little girl who's survived aliens for multiple weeks is just a little girl who survived aliens for multiple weeks.
Well, yes.
And going back to the Vietnam War of it all, there's that other element, which is very 1986, 1987, highlighted with Platoon and Rambo, of revisiting the Vietnam War with the sense of how can we give ourselves a happy ending, lie to ourselves about what American ideals are or our military might or any of that shit. And that I do not feel, and I'll present this to you, I do not feel like xenomorphs are in any way, shape, or form some sort of alternative to the Viet Cong. I find that to be a particularly racist based evaluation of this film.
Well, yeah, because you're suggesting, as we were talking about earlier, you can't demoralize them. They don't have any sense of when to fall back, or when because they're mindless animals.
Yes.
And I don't know that it's now in 86, you could have got away with applying that kind of phrase to, a minority.
No.
And if you were running as a Republican currently right now, you could probably get away with, applying that kind of phrasing to a minority. But
they seem to be getting away with a whole fucking list of stuff that has to do with denying someone's bodily autonomy. Much like how Burke locks Newt and Ripley in the med bay with a facehugger in the hopes that one of them will be implanted, and therefore he can just smuggle them back onto the ship, put them in cryostasis, and come away with this with a biological weapon which will save his job. I mean,
and he'll probably get a nice gold watch for his trouble.
Yes. Holy shit. So that is the one thing that I do like about the director's cut, is the revelation that Burke has been stung and taken back to the hive and cocooned, and that Ripley shows up and has to make a choice. Here's someone who's not only risked your life multiple times, but basically set you up to have your worst fears come true. And how she reacts to that is still with empathy. And that is where I feel like that defining line of, is this ultimately a conservative allegory, really falls apart.
Right.
Because the people who survive here are the most empathetic of everyone in the party.
Well, yeah, and I believe that if you are, if you're going to try to attach some sort of Vietnam allegory to this in a way that feels accurate, is that you've got all these hard scrabble Marines going in, being forced to go into battle with something they're not anywhere, they don't know why, they don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know what they're going to be encountering, and it's all in service of for somebody else's gain.
Right. And this is a corporate funded war. The only reason they're there is because Weyland-Yutani is paying for it. And of course, you also have to come back to, is it just a terrible fucking plan? Because once they kind of go, oh, there's all these life signs underneath the cooling tank of this nuclear reactor. And they're like, well, we can't go in there with guns. Collect all the magazines so you don't shoot anything. And immediately they're attacked and just start shooting anything they can possibly get their hands on. Because of course they fucking would. And the rest of this is a ticking time bomb because they shot out the cooling system for this nuclear fucking reactor, and they have to beat feet off this fucking planet. They're either going to die in an explosion or they are going to, get cocooned up. So those are your choices. It's just a beautifully constructed motion picture. I hate to simp this hard, but I'm being honest with you. There's not a lot of fat on this film.
It hits the ground running.
It really does.
Especially it is perfectly edited. Again, some of the scenes that made it into the director's cut, they still work. But I'm glad but I don't know that the theatrical cuts suffer from not having it.
No. I think the only thing that is true, the automatic gunfire thing is a fun sequence, but do you need it? Probably not.
It's just another way to emphasize just how outnumbered they are.
Yeah. It becomes, here's the wonderful balancing act of this motion picture. Here's a film that is constructed like, here are these army guys and they have all these fancy fucking guns. They sound badass. They come into this armed to the teeth. They have all the highest tech weapons you could possibly have. And it doesn't fucking matter. They are coming in here with a siege mentality that they are the invaders. They are the protectors. They're kicking ass. They get their ass kicked, and it becomes a siege picture in reverse, where they're trapped. They're unable to get off this planet. And there's a ticking time bomb, quite literally. And their search for survival requires them to actually stop shooting and start listening to one another.
Well, I think I think another the thing, and again, the reason why I think it is unfair to compare it to Alien is Alien works under the classic, and then there was one structure.
Sure, yeah.
Where here they go on their they start their little mission. They're all like shit talking and tough talking, and in like minutes, like they are decimated. Like their team is cut down to about a quarter of what it was when they went in. And a lot of what ends up happening is they panic, and you have one of them accidentally setting fire to another one. The one who was holding the ammo, which is unfortunate. You have another one getting blown up by said bag of ammo.
Yeah.
So it's, a lot of accidents, a lot of friendly fire. I think only a couple of them actually end up being killed by aliens. They see these things. They're in a small, very tight space, and they start panicking.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like, we could go through the plot of this, but it's not really necessary. You'll have a lot better time watching Aliens than having us kind of recount it beat by beat. But in terms of like, let's talk about the characters element. The one thing you might be able to levy when it comes to the amount of colonial Marines in this is that people like Dietrich, Frost, Crow, Rosbowski.
My favorite one's Spunkmeyer.
Spunkmeyer.
Which I think of every time I see Otis Spunkmeyer cookies in a movie theater. I'm like, there he is.
All I can hear in the back of my head is Spunkmeyer, get up here.
God damn it.
There is the amount of dread that comes with, because a lot, you come into this with, even if this was, and it was my first real introduction to how a xenomorph operates. But when he pulls his hand off of that rail and it's just goo, you're like, oh, that motherfucker's dead. He is dead as shit.
It's like, he stuck his hand in rubber cement.
I like Spunkmeyer. Who knows what's happening? Like, the only thing we really know about Spunkmeyer is he's obviously not washing his hands, and he likes a transphobic joke or two. Whereas Pharaoh, who's the pilot, is intriguing because we know next to nothing about her. And of course, she's the one who has all the cool lingo that lived in my head. Well, like, how am I going to bring up terms like I'm in the pipe and 5x5? Like, these are great fucking terms. I mean, she's just as badass as anyone on the team. And that
she never even gets off. She never even gets off the ship. She just she's just hanging out, waiting for him to come back, and still gets that.
She still gets a face full of mini jaw. I love mid-flight.
I love Sergeant Apone, played by an actual Marine sergeant, the first black decorated Marine sergeant.
Yeah, Apone. Here's the thing: how did this guy not get put in a million other movies? He was
basically like R. Lee Ermey, where
yes,
he really did in real life what he was hired to do in a movie.
He's another one who's full of things that when I just think about him, they automatically just jump up like every day in the core is paradise. Every meal is a banquet, assholes and elbows.
And just all of his dialogue between him and Bill Paxton are just, it's just golden.
Hudson, get over here. Get over here. The delight he has when Rip is like, I feel like a fifth wheel. And he's like, well, what can I do? And he's like, I don't know. What can you do? And she's kind of, it's almost, you can see the, hey, someone's listening to me come across her face. And she's like, I can drive that power loader over there. And then there's this Evil Dead sequence of her strapping into this fucking thing. You practically are waiting for her to say groovy at the end of it. Cameron is having the time of his life with all these bullshit fucking details. And she's like, picks up a box and says, where do you want me to put it? And he's like, Bay 12, please.
He starts cracking delighted. Up. Yeah.
I have to deal with these fuck knuckles constantly. I'm so glad I can rely on somebody to use this equipment to do the things we need to do. They're just in love at first sight. Apone is one of it's an economy. It's everything that we love about this, doing movies on this show, in the sense that when it came to Friday the 13th, you're dead meat anyways. How are you going to make your character stand out?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand what Siskel meant by I don't feel like I know any of these characters. Yeah, you don't really know Frost and Wierzbowski because they get killed off pretty quickly.
Right.
But I feel like you get to know the deal with Drake and Vasquez. They fucking.
They fucking. And it's great.
Yeah,
it's great for both of them.
She's definitely the top in that relationship.
And he is into it.
Oh yeah, he is totally into it.
Drake is a fascinating fucking character because you rarely see someone who decorates themselves with bones. This is a guy walking around with bones on a string, not just around his, like a necklace, but hanging off from his hat like he's a goddamn pirate. What the fuck is that about?
Yeah, you've got Gorman, who is ostensibly in charge, but looks like he doesn't really want to be.
His facade, but he also delivers this facade, right? He feels very much like the kind in another Vietnam allegory of the kind of commander that ends up getting fragged by his own troops because he is overconfident and underqualified. He does not come up with any sort of plan. He's really truly walking them into their deaths.
And I do like in the first attack scene, which is, it's, whether the first time or the 75th time, it's so well done. It's so scary. You've got that Horner score. Mwah, it works so well. It's not even like a bombastic score. It's just this kind of unnerving, gets under, into your bones, kind of like growing, kind of keyboard sort of composition. Everybody is sort of freaking and running around screaming at each other. And he's also panicking, but he's panicking quietly.
He's crumbling.
He is sweating. He's shaking. He's like stuttering. He can't give them directions. It's just it feels so, this is what I feel like war is actually like. You've got, I know you've got movies like Jarhead that kind of the Marines train people to sort of shut up their emotions and just become killing machines. But I have the sneaky suspicion that when you are in the heat of it, there's a lot of panicking. And that's why people, quote unquote, accidentally get killed by their own troops. I'm not trying to get anything controversial here, but I do think that it is not, you don't shut down as much as people think you do. And that's why you give so many, soldiers, so much military who serve in active combat come back like damaged, because how could you not be?
Yes. I don't know. Well, obviously I had a group experience watching this several times, and there's a visceral thrill to once Ripley knows that no one in that vehicle has the capacity to do anything. And she's like, fuck this, we're doing something. And just revs the engine on that fucking NPC. It's like, okay, time to go in there and get these fucking people. And it just, you can sense that like, oh my God, finally, somebody who knows what they're doing is doing something about it. But the other part of it is she doesn't know what she's doing necessarily. She just knows what the right thing to do.
Right. She doesn't really know how to drive the vehicle. She kills the axle on it. So they can't use it anymore after that.
And yeah, she just drives like a bat out of hell because the goal is to just get fucking in there and give them an exit strategy. And she manages to do that. Even if not everyone can make it back. There's also the components of this that are interesting in that she tells everyone like they have acid for blood and like, sure. And then when they start shooting them and acid squirts out of them and Drake gets a face full of acid in this, it's kind of like, you weren't listening. Like flamethrowers are better. But they don't have impact. And the things that have impact, there's a lot of danger to using.
Right. There's no winning. There's no winning.
I'm going to ask you a question that I'm pretty sure I know the answer to, but it's really a setup for me. Did you ever read the novelization?
I don't think I did.
I did. I reread it like it was a fucking textbook. Burke. Not Burke, not Drake either. Who the fuck am I? Gorman. Gorman in the book is stung by a tail and he falls into anaphylactic shock. And it is communicated in the book that they're operating in a hive mentality like a termite might. So if you're stinging things and you're bringing them back, but you're not using them for food, you're using them to create more xenomorphs. But what is creating the thing that creates more xenomorphs? And that's where they kind of like wonder, what is the top of this food chain that doesn't really require food? And that's the ominous idea that eventually we're going to get the alien queen.
Oh, this scene. I mean, this movie cost $18 million.
Yeah.
To make. And it looks, I mean, there are a couple moments when you can see that the xenomorphs are, dudes in suits. You can like, I will say, unfortunately, on high definition, where the xenomorph is coming through the air shaft, and it's when Gorman,
you can see some wires.
Well, it's not even that. When right before Gorman and Vasquez blow themselves up, you can see like legs. Like panted legs, like coming out behind like the head and arms.
Like he's wearing the top half, but not the bottom.
Right. He's got them dockers sticking out. Yeah.
You can see the wires on the power loaders as well.
Yeah.
The alien queen, they're hiding it around corners a lot, but the power lifter and the alien queen are kind of built on the same puppetry system, which is another one of those things, because Cameron has come up in this, how do we make $1 out of 15 cents system, as like the way we're going to solve this is to make magic tricks that we can work around to make the most out of these things and make the illusions work for us. It's the one thing that like now it's like when you watch North by Northwest, a wonderful film that I could watch that fucker on a loop, but the matte paintings in there stick out like a sore thumb. But again, it's a fucking movie. I'm not coming to North by Northwest for stark reality. And it's the same thing here. Like the matte paintings become very obvious. The rear projection stuff that they use, particularly for the crash of their dropship, that you can tell that is a rear projection. But it's all in service of this emotional, thrilling ride of a film that's so well acted, that's so well photographed. It's just fucking amazing.
I'm just thinking about when after she finds Newt and kind of just sort of stumbles into the nest, and you've got the queen. She's got these like gnarly looking sort of ovipositors like coming out from either side of her, and she's got that kind of like nasty sort of wet breathing, and they just sort of like stare at each other for like 30 seconds. It's just like
it's so cathartic. It's amazing how this builds up characters and up situations, and it provides the audience with tools to know something is coming without constantly showing you what is coming. Once they, up that we have movement and that device that allows them to kind of send out radar pulses to know that there's creatures coming towards them, it's an automatic hint to you that shit's about to hit the fan, and it increases and increases and increases. It's just very well constructed.
I do always get a kick out of after she destroys the nest and she and Newt make it back to the platform to try to get the ship. I do love the last 15 minutes being of self-destruct being in real time. I think that's very cool. I do like that the alien queen takes the elevator to get to the platform.
She knows how to use it too. Listen, she's a single mom. And she knows how to use resources like that other people would not, She doesn't need a man to tell her how to operate an elevator. She saw somebody. She could fucking figure it out.
I just wanted there to be a deleted scene in which like she's just patiently standing inside the elevator like
just listening to music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like Rhinestone Cowboy or something. But talking about when they do manage to make it off the colony before it explodes, then you've got that literal gut punch of a second ending.
Oh my god! Oh Jesus!
I had to ask, do you remember the? I mean, I know you remember when you went. Do you remember the theatrical experience of seeing it for the first time?
Yes.
Like, how did the audience react to that?
So here's the thing. This is the first time this ever happened to me. I was sitting there, very old school theater seats. These are wood armrests, and Jesus Christ, that hell! They're old school wood armrests, and I'm clenching my hands, and I can remember after them, racing out of the nuclear reactor, and it exploding behind them. And I picked up my arms and my hands were tingling. I was just, it affected me on a molecular level. Like, holy shit, this is the most thrilling thing I have ever experienced in my life. On top of that, you have, and you mentioned it before, James Horner, who had like 12 hours to make the soundtrack of this motion picture, and does that sequence of them leaving so well that fence post metal clank, 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 clank.
And it's been used so many times in trailers.
It was used in every fucking trailer, including Die Hard. And he got Die Hard off of this motion picture and used extra pieces of music. James Horner, a man who's been known to recycle a tune or two. But that was used in so many trailers for so long because it is such an amazing, emotional, thrilling piece of music. So yeah, they get up there and there's this kind of like, baby, we made it. And the screams that came out of motherfuckers when that alien queen tail rips out of it's just, I'm freaking out just thinking about it. Because people literally lost their goddamn minds. And it's an incredible magic trick of that tail coming through a human being. You can kind of see the wire now. But at the time, it was incredible. And then on top of it, ripping this motherfucker in half.
And even though he's an android, it's still pretty horrifying because he's got the ash, like, milk and spaghetti flying out of him and all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, he's now, it's set up in such a way that she absolutely does not trust him and believes that he will sacrifice them at a moment's notice and is so happy to be proven wrong. And at the end of it, for him to just be torn in half and shit is like, how are they going to get this monstrous, giganto alien off this fucking ship? Oh my God. What a movie. God damn it. What a picture.
This is a movie I will not truck any sort of actually about it.
Oh, fuck it. Fuck that. Like, if mistakes were made, we didn't end up seeing them. For example, right? Hicks, originally supposed to be played by James Remar from The Warriors. And would he have done as well as Michael Biehn? I would say probably not. This was not Remar's best period. The reason he ended up not being in the role, they filmed him for a week, but he got picked up on drug charges. And so he was recast with Biehn that, Cameron obviously knew from The Terminator. And Biehn just brings an emotional intelligence to that role that I don't think is James Remar's best suit, let's say. And that is a very happy accident that elevates the entire motion picture.
And also he's very nice to look at.
Yeah, no, he's beautiful. Conversely, right, you have Hudson and you have the pure dynamo of Bill Paxton in that role.
I miss him so much.
Oh my God. What an actor. We were robbed. We're robbed of everything that Bill Paxton, brought to his roles. Here's a guy who was a great character actor, could also fill in leads, was a good director as well. If people have not seen Frailty, I cannot recommend it enough. Another what a picture. That we did not get more from him on that is a fucking shame. I just think people would use the hell out of him now. And he's a lovable asshole. And he seemed to fill that role constantly. I mean, he's coming on. The reason he got the picture was he's coming off of Weird Science. And people are like, he's kind of running away with his 15 minutes in this movie.
Well, he's an interesting character in that he comes off as very cowardly.
Yeah.
And, very and possibly unreliable, but he always manages to come through.
Yes. Yeah, he's not someone who should be making decisions, but that's not to say that he does not have the ability to fulfill his role. It's just that it's very clear that Hudson should not be in charge of anything.
And I think he would be the first to say that.
Yes. Especially when he decides to nominate Newt to be in charge.
Hey, you know what? Is he wrong though?
He's not wrong because she is the best authority at that moment on how they should fortify that building and stay alive, because she, with no weapons, no training, as Ripley is so right to mention, like, this child has survived. I think we can do this if we keep our fucking heads and do the job that's in front of us. And she's fucking right. Yeah, he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing in this motion.
Yeah, there's not a in a cast of other than of course Sigourney Weaver, relatively unknown actors at the time. This was Lance Henriksen's first major role, even though he's like about 55 here at this point. But he reportedly said that if this did not work out for him, he was going to quit acting. And this was kind of the role that made him famous.
It gives him a career he never would have had otherwise, just like showing up for 10 minutes and not even that. I think he's in like 3 minutes of Terminator.
He's like he's a cop in it who is killed off pretty quickly. Of course, it's one of Bill Paxton's first major roles. You've got Michael Biehn, who people really only knew from Terminator at that point. You've got, and there's some of the like Jeanette Goldstein, who kind of didn't do a whole lot after this. She and Henry Paxton were, of course, in Near Dark, which is another movie we have to cover and gush over at some point.
And talk about a brilliant performance trio of Paxton, Goldstein, and Henriksen.
She actually now runs a brassiere shop, which I think is pretty cool. But she's very memorable in that role. Probably couldn't get away with it now.
Yeah, probably not.
She's got a little bit of brown face going on. The accent's a little shaky sometimes, but I feel like she didn't intend it to be viewed as offensive.
No, I think she viewed it as who is the toughest type of person that I could put into this role. And it is not politically correct. That being said, I don't think it's ever meant as an offensive story.
No, it's not meant for the audience to laugh at or anything.
And I have obviously lived in Los Angeles for almost my entire life and have met so many Latina women over the years. And when I talk about horror or whatnot, they will bring up Vasquez as this character they knew, maybe not seen themselves exactly, but knew that person and how so badass.
Yeah, I mean, she's the toughest one of them all.
She's fucking incredible and doesn't let up for a second. Like, you don't ever not believe that Vasquez is that person. It might have done her a bit of a disservice in terms of how do you necessarily cast her in other roles, because it is such a unique performance. People either want that or they don't get that you aren't that.
Well,
it's been a problem for her.
It's worth noting that the only other movies she's been in were either directed by James Cameron or people that James Cameron was married to at some point. So.
Yeah. And you're thinking, how many people could James Cameron have been married to?
A lot.
A lot. It turns out he don't quit.
Yeah, it's not surprising to say that people who are difficult to work with are generally tend to be difficult to live with too. So
yeah, the other Herculean task here. All right, we've got 3 people that we really are left to talk about, and one of these people is not a character in the movie, but creates characters in the movie, and that is Stan Winston, who's picking up from where H.R. Giger and Carlo Rambaldi left off, and in creating a different version of the xenomorph that is unique to this motion picture and transforms the idea of what an alien can be. Here, the tails are more active. They're more insect-like. They have more arms. There are sequences in which they're leaping off of different, walls, cocoon walls. They just bring a lot to the table. And then the incredible design of the alien queen, which is about the most amazing thing that I have ever witnessed on screen. Like, what a fucking Muppet. Like, Miss Piggy, Alien Queen. That's where I'm going to go. I've written for one, but I have not written for Alien Queen yet, but I'm fingers crossed. I was told by Muppets people, Becky and I were both told, you get these characters. And when I tell you my feet did not touch the ground for 3 days, that I don't know that I've heard a better compliment, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. But Stan Winston an amazing individual, another person that has gone far too soon, wanted to be a director himself, ended up doing Pumpkinhead, something we'll probably do sooner or later because it is a weird version of a slasher. And it just comes up with a murder and the power loader, the fucking power loader, everyone.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like it's got that like RoboCop type like style noise when she's walking in it.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, so much of the sound design of this movie is so incredible. The screech of the aliens, which you now hear all the time as velociraptor screeches.
It's actually apparently it's baboon noises that they kind of tweaked a little bit.
Yeah. It's so evocative. Like you immediately know. And Cameron didn't like them the first time he heard it. And then he's like, you know what? It caused a reaction I didn't like. But I also have to, get across the idea that the audience won't like it. They won't like hearing it. Because it shouldn't be pleasing.
No, because it basically means your ass,
Right.
So it's like remember the remake of War of the Worlds?
Oh yeah.
When the alien ships would make that like foghorn noise.
Oh.
And it's like, get ready to start killing.
Yeah. And then Gail and Heard. Speaking of wives of James Cameron, a producer who has made a career for himself, carved it out of nothing at a time in which women were far from the prevailing group of people in the producer ranks, and fought tooth and nail for people to bring up their creative visions to the screen. It should be noted that she deserves every fucking dollar she has right now, considering the cacophony of films that she has been behind. What a fucking producer. The fact that she could keep working with James Cameron even after they were not married is unbelievable. And made a ton of money on The Walking Dead. She's got more money than I'll ever dream of, but she deserves every dollar of it.
Yeah, she does.
So let's go back a little bit and set up our final character to talk about. A revisit here. So Cameron and Heard end up jumping on and off this project a bunch of times, pretty much because the studio will not believe them when they say something. Barry Diller says the only way you can make a movie on the scope of what you've written on the page is $35 million, and that's too much. And Heard says we can make it for 12. That's double what we had for Terminator. We can do this. There's a bunch of add-ons to this budget that have shit all to do with the actual, special effects here. There's a bunch of timing elements. But Diller also balks at paying Sigourney Weaver $1 million. He's like, don't think she's worth it.
Whoa.
She's fucking coming off of Ghostbusters. And he's like, shit, that's like one of the biggest movies of all time. She definitely has a lot of genre love. I can't do it. And Cameron and her go, well, you have to do it without us if you're not bringing her on board. Puts Diller between a rock and a hard place. Not only pays her $1 million up front, but she gets a cut of the gross of this. Aliens end up costing a little over $18 million. Pulls in between foreign estimates, they think between $150 and $180 million. So Weaver gets a cut of that. Deserves every penny, and her performance here is so fucking good that she's nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, it's the first time in a Best Actress category that Best Actress had been nominated for an action movie.
Yeah, and this is on top of like Siskel and Ebert going, it's too much action for me. But the only reason you care is because you care about Ripley. And the reason you care about Ripley is Sigourney fucking Weaver, who is just wrapping you around her little finger. She's that fucking good in this role. She's badass when she needs to be badass. She's vulnerable when she needs to be vulnerable. And you feel for her because she is traumatized legitimately and still finds the wherewithal to not only save herself, but everyone else that she can.
Yeah, no, like there's not a single, there's nothing wrong with this movie.
No.
Not a single thing.
It's just not one of those movies where there's a lot of funny japes that I can make at weird inconsistencies.
No.
It just is one of those things that is just as good as you can really get. It's so perfect in so many ways, despite, the crew not getting along. The cinematographer walks off like, fuck James Cameron. I hate this. They bring in new people. Cameron cannot hate tea time enough. There's this tradition in with British cinema that twice a day, the tea trolley cart comes out and people stop what they're doing, have a cup of tea, eat a biscuit, just kind of reset. And Cameron's looking around at this. It's like, motherfuckers, on Galaxy of Terror, I made a spaceship out of Big Mac containers. Would you get your ass back on set and fucking work for me, please? And an international incident every single day on the set. But you can't say that what the end result is that he was a hack and he was just being an a-hole to have to create a sense of fear on the set. He's just fighting for the best movie he could possibly make and always sets a bar for himself that I just don't think anyone can live up to when it comes down to it.
No, and that's why he's been working on the sequel to Avatar for the past 10 years.
Right. A bunch of people in a tank of water with ping pong balls on the top of it. Oh, wow. There's a lot. I'm interested. I have not seen the trailer yet because my Multiverse of Madness went straight from Nuvi into the movie. I didn't get any trailers at all. I didn't get Thor. I didn't get Avatar. I didn't get whatever the fuck. They just showed Multiverse of Madness. Are you looking forward to Avatar?
Well, you know what? My shameful secret, I have not actually seen the first one. Yeah. I mean, I will say that the trailer for the second one is very pretty. It kind of looks like something you'd have playing in the background of a spa,
Yeah.
It's got very relaxing music. It's got it's got lovely visuals. I mean, I don't know if the storyline is particularly compelling, but it looks like it'd be very nice to look at.
Yeah, it's not a home run the way that Aliens is or the way that Titanic is. But I will say that he's trying to make a movie, right? He's trying to take you somewhere. And so if this is the thing that's firing his fucking imagination, I'm willing to watch it, right? I don't know if it's a priority, but I do want to see it in the crazy way they project that he's going to do the high frame rate that Billy Long's, Billy, what's his face, long halftime walk was, where people were so freaked out at how weird the 3D was. I want to see it that way. I want to see it in the weirdest presentation he can possibly dream up. Because that's the way he wants everyone to see it. He wants this to revolutionize cinema. I just don't think that's a bad thing. I think people think they're too fucking cool is when it comes down to it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, people can't just relax and enjoy a movie.
That's not to say that Avatar isn't drowning in, white savior complex and it's retrograde when it comes to its plot. You can criticize something and also understand what the goal of it is and that it has bigger aspirations than your average film. We've had this conversation many times.
Yes.
I could talk about this for another 3 hours.
Yes.
I love Aliens. It is the movie that changed me on a molecular level. There was the person I was before and the person I was after.
It's just a perfect movie. I could watch it just over and over and over again. And I know the movie from beginning to end, and I still love it so much.
It used to be a thing where, like, if I had trouble sleeping, I would listen to the commentary of the DVD to put myself to sleep. I've watched the making of, as you might have noticed, over and fucking over again. Like, there's very few movies I want to know everything about, quite like Aliens, probably because I saw it at that right time in my adolescence, where it just, I knew from that moment on, whatever I was going to do, had something to do with giving people a feeling like I had when I watched Aliens.
Yeah, it can't be beat. It can't be beat.
The only times it kind of reached that level again would be the following year, when I wandered into the Burbank AMC and watched a little film called Predator. And we've been talking behind the scenes. We play a little fast and loose here at Kill by Kill. You know, we make plans, we break plans. I think at one point we were going to make Predator a mainline franchise that we were going to do, and then it got tabled, and they were like, we should do it. We should do Aliens and Predator, and that got tabled. But with the conversation of the upcoming Prey series, I reached out to Gina immediately and said, should we fucking talk about Predator?
And I say, yes.
Because it fits the mold. And we haven't done an action film since, well, I mean, this is also an action film. But I think Predator is more an action film than it is a horror film, whereas this is a horror film and an action film. So, and it has characters, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Characters up the wazoo.
Characters telling filthy jokes.
Filthy jokes. They're each very individual in their own ways. Like, they are trying to make Siskel and Gene and Roger really pay attention to character work. And I think we should talk about Predator. What do you say?
Yes, we should.
Fuck yeah. So next week, we're coming back with Dish by Dish. The week after that, we're going to talk about Predator. And we're going to dig into each of those characters. We're really going to unpack it and understand that there's no way you can fight a predator with a bow and arrow. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading right here that a bow and arrow appears in Predator.
Yeah, you really went off the rails with that on Twitter the other day.
If I could reach through a fucking computer screen and start strangling people, first of all, I'd never stop. But this is one of those things where people just type so fast, they never think about what they're chatting about. And that was one of those things where it's like, holy fuck, I don't think you've seen a Predator movie. I don't think you know what Predator is about. So we're at the very least going to talk about Predator on the next main feed episode of Kill by Kill. I mean, we could choose our own death venture, but all you're doing is like trying to find something where you don't end up birthing a fucking alien.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only person who doesn't get aliened in some way is Frost, and he gets set on fire. And I know on
right.
That. Again, Wierzbowski gets blown up. I mean, I guess blown up would be the preferable one because it's fast.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Oh, it should. Here's the reason why I brought up Little Shop of Horrors. Because they those guns that they made, like they tried to find guns that would shoot blanks that would look cool, and then they built futuristic looking shit over them. But they were so powerful that they shot through their set and into the set of Little Shop of Horrors. So, oh my God, what a fucking picture. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television at thespool.net, and the other little side project I'm doing, White Ladies in Crisis. We have recently returned back to the show that we started this for, which is the Apple TV series Physical. So we're going back to weekly shorter episodes for the time being, discussing that show specifically. And I am on Twitter and Instagram under Gina Does Things.
Do it today, people. Check it out. Our art is done by Josh Hollis, the great Josh Hollis. Revenge Body does of all of our music, and you can find the main theme and all the remixes on Bandcamp. Just type in Revenge Body and you will find the Kill by Kill album. It's got 20 whole tracks of fun, crazy, bizarre shit that you should put in your ear holes on the daily. Find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Tell us what you think of the episode. Please, my God, rate and review us. No matter what your podcatcher is, please let people know that you're listening to the show. We would love for you to do that, because when you rate and review us, more people hear about the show. Don't worry, folks. All right. The body count will continue, especially when it comes to aliens fucking up human beings. For myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.